When you think of the best game of all time, you probably think of an epic role-playing game with a huge open world, myriads of quests to complete, and many hours of gameplay. Yet more often than not, we might make the mistake of underestimating the quality a short title can have. Some of my favorite games of all times are in reality quite brief games to play. But why are shorter games snubbed, and why, in my opinion, they have a lot more to offer? First things first, roll the intro. I am probably not the only one that from time to time when buying a video game thinks about how much time of excitement I will get back. You probably also thought when buying that €70 game that it was probably worth it, since the game will last you for weeks, or perhaps you bought a smaller game of only €10, scaling proportionally the money spent over the time spent in the game. And keep in mind that I'm not Genovese, I'm not greedy, but when the budget is limited, it is human tendency to double think every choice, and time factor is simply one of the first things we tend to think of when investing a non-indifferent amount of money into a game. Of course, it's not the sole factor, but it plays a noticeable role, even if you might not admit it. There was a time somewhere between the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Wii U era where the length of a game was more important than usual. Games released before these consoles, like Bioshock Infinite in 2013, were not criticized for lasting 11 hours, but games like Mirror's Edge Catalyst, released in 2016, was, and this game also lasts about the same. Know that Mirror's Edge Catalyst has other flaws, so many in fact that I already addressed them in an older video, but the point is that I remember the longevity of the game being a critical factor. Mirror's Edge wasn't the sole victim here. Let us not forget that other game criticized for its lack of longevity released the year prior. I have the feeling that players have calmed down a bit and are no longer obsessing over longevity like in previous years, but it is still a hot topic for some, and as I stated earlier, I still occasionally make the mistake of considering longer playtime as a net positive, and I'm definitely not the only one here. It would be banal to say the obvious and say something like short games can be fun too, because sure, we all know that, but what I wish to discuss more in depth today is how shorter games can actually be better in certain aspects due to their shorter longevity. Games that last less than 15 hours offer a gaming experience different from longer titles, with net benefits not often discussed, or at least until today. The reason why we keep in so high regard big titles like Skyrim, Zelda, The Witcher and company is because these games offer the player an infinite playground, a massive world where anything and everything is possible. There is a little bit of everything in these games, and players get attached to worlds where they spend more time in them. It is a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy. The longer you play a game and the greater is your attachment, making you want to spend even more time playing that game. However, while longer titles definitely have their appeal, their longevity can in rare occasions be a double-edged sword. Do keep in mind that the bigger the game is and the harder it is to make every moment of the adventure exciting. It is inevitable that a game that lasts for 15 plus hours has some dead moments in its adventure. Perhaps the player needs to do some grinding, or maybe a repetitive task, or even just not an exciting quest. The things that will not click will be multiple, and will be more evident the longer the game goes for. There is not a game that can keep a high beat of excitement without either slower moments or fatigue from the player's end. In contrast, shorter games do not need to fight for dead ends, since the shorter lengths allow the developers to put more care in every step taken by the player. Developers do not need to make sure that every path the player chooses is half decent, since there is only one path these games allow the players to take, and thus it can be refined to perfection. In a linear title like Celeste, every level is crafted to the millimeter. Every level feels unique, introduces new mechanics, the story goes quickly but it is still memorable, and the game is simply fun to play from start to end. Sure, there will be some more exciting boss fights than others, but there is no boring part that takes a noticeable part of the game. The same goes for another arcade-type game like Call of Juarez Gunslinger. The frenetic rhythm the game has is kept high at all times, and rather than to dilute it in a vast empty field, it narrows it towards specific interest points that can be missed by the player. Sure, choice is sacrificed to achieve this, but where the two games lack of choice, they heavily compensate with the highest of qualities for the sole one they propose to the player, the one to always to move forward. Even the best long games have boring portions in their adventure. I love The Witcher 3, but completing so many side quests can feel like a job sometimes, and there are so many unique ways to ask the player to go somewhere and kill a monster. Likewise, shrines in Zelda are cool, but if I wanted to play a puzzle game, I would have bought one. Again, both games are masterpieces, but playing them can be challenging sometimes. And actually, this latter point does bring me to a fundamental difference between longer and shorter games. Shorter games are much easier to play than longer titles. Not easy in the sense of difficulty, but in the sense of how easy it is for the player to pick them up. As I described in the slow gaming video, there are right games for the right moments, and longer titles have a harder time finding their space within a complex time schedule. Even when I have a relative free time, I struggle to find the will to finish an odyssey of a game, preferring to find an alternative, a game that allows me to experience excitement right from the get-go. A shorter game like Far Cry Blood Dragon is much more immediate than its predecessor Far Cry 3 because of this reason. The latter game takes quite some time to pick up steam, and it takes time for the player to truly unlock everything and complete the adventure. FC Blood Dragon on the other hand can be completed in 2 afternoons. After the first half an hour of the game, the player can basically do everything, cutting corners and getting to the fun part of the game much quicker. When I did that very old, definitely you should not watch video about Far Cry Blood Dragon, I was able to install, play and complete the game through capture the recordings in like 2 days, without ever feeling burned out. In fact, the odds of me doing the same for this video are quite high. Sorry Far Cry 6, you are just too damn long and repetitive. Replayability is also a crucial perk short games have in comparison to longer titles. Sure, every game can be replayed, but how often does a player replay 15 plus hours of the same game? It's not impossible, of course, even I played Zelda Breath of the Wild from the very beginning, but it is certainly not common, since it is not only time consuming, but it does become boring to play the same game over 100 hours. Sure, some longer titles do offer players different replayability options, perhaps even very different side quests and gameplay styles depending on the previous choices, but honestly games can change so much. Even if you decide to be a very different character in a role-playing game, the core, the essence of the game is still going to reflect the one that you had when you played the first time, making replaying a long title not always worth it. I didn't say it yet in this video, but obviously the old saying quality over quantity holds more than true and is made evident when playing some games. There are some titles that I can guarantee you would be much more appreciated by fans if they lasted less rather than more. One of many is Matcha 3, third entry of the 2K series developed by Hangar 13. This GTA 5 style game asks the player to free various areas around the city in order to unlock the various boss encounters, and to call these missions repetitive would be an understatement. Rather than to focus on the mafia-related story of the main missions, 90% of the time is spent driving around town and gunning down the same 3 type of enemies. The same holds true in the opposite direction. A concise game like the Stanley Parable works so sublimely because it is short, and even the few extra hours of gameplay added by its Ultra Deluxe version do not make the game longer than it's supposed to. The charm of the unique narration the game has would not work if the alternate endings would be over 100, since they would just start feeling redundant and not memorable. The many, but not so many endings the game has are all memorable, especially the broom closet ending. Wait, did I just make another video about the Stanley Parable?
This is not a video about the Stanley Parable. Not another one?
Ha, take that Dandots, I told you I would make a third one. Anyways, going back on track. Another great advantage of playing shorter games is that the variety of situations the player is placed in can actually feel much greater than in bigger titles. Sure, both short and long titles can have variety in their sceneries and in their game styles, but since shorter games last less, the new introductions are immediate and every hour there is something that is changing. If you are playing a game like Bioshock Infinite, you truly feel the difference between one chapter and the other, with unique sceneries and always changing dynamics, getting new upgrades every hour or so. In longer titles, the player usually needs to grind for new perks by completing many missions in the same way. Sure, there might be bigger skill tree in longer games, but the time that passes from unlocking one skill to the next can be quite tedious. Shorter games are much more immediate to play. If you boot up Dark Souls 3 after months of not playing, you will struggle to remember the controls, remember what on earth is going on, and to add salt to injury, enemies will be too strong for you to proceed. But when you boot up Pac-Man Championship Edition, you will know how to play within 2 seconds. And do not underestimate how often this scenario can happen. Many times I've started big gaming odysseys just to find myself pausing them for whatever reason, and then coming back to them struggling to catch up. Restarting a shorter game if something similar happened is much easier. I restarted Dishonored after leaving it half completed without too much hesitation, while I would never restart Dragon Quest XI after sinking in 40 and plus hours. And perhaps this is the most important point I should conclude my thesis with. Shorter games can give the experience of a full title without requiring devotions for weeks. You do not need a whole month to play that first Half-Life, just 3 days, making it much more accessible while still giving you plenty of satisfaction and a complete storyline. The phrase, "this game is great but only lasts for X hours" should be seen as a compliment, not as a negative remark. In fact, before jumping to the conclusion, I wanted to share with you some short games you should probably give a chance. My picks were already mentioned and used as examples during this video, so instead I'll share with you some of my friends' picks they thought would fit the bill. My brother Tiro the Epic suggests some very unique action games both in gameplay and art style. Katamari Damacy, a surreal puzzle game where you roll up stuff, Jet Set Radio, the best roller skater game I've ever played, and Sonic Rush, one of the best Sonic games I still need to play. Dando's the Greatest, that was cited earlier in the video, suggests 3 games based on Italian culture: Elisa the Innkeeper, a light visual novel inspired by Italian theatre literature, Casina, another visual novel based on one of Plato's comedies, and Dante's Infernos, based on the Divine Comedy written by, well, Dante. Lastly, my friend Tito the Amazing suggests 3 awesome titles all available on Steam with no particular common denominator: Half-Life 2, an incredible FPS with a fantastic campaign, Portal, one of the most unique puzzle games I've ever played, and Hotline Miami, a fun but quite challenging frenetic title. But as usual, there are plenty more games out there for you to enjoy. Longer games will most likely be always nominated for Game of the Year awards due to the mold of colossal content they provide to players. However, sometimes less is more, and I praise games that are shorter for their ingenious ways of containing so much fun in so little time. Shorter games have some key qualities that longer titles simply cannot emulate. Some adventures work best because they are shorter, and there are definitely games out there that would benefit from less dilution and more careful details. Of course, there are titles that work best for the exact opposite reason, but maybe I'll do a future video praising them. But for today, the spotlight is shorter, but brighter. If you made it this far, I wanted to thank you one too many short games times for watching today's video. I really hope you liked today's topic and find inspiration to give shorter games a shot. Let me know what games you would recommend to people to play down in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, do not forget to leave it a like, to share it and to subscribe for more. I wish you all a wonderful day, and until next time, arrivederci!